Let's bring in Ryan Mauro this morning. He's sitting here on the couch with us this morning. You know, one thing I'm heartened by in all of this, if you can imagine this, police responded to this in 2 minutes. And they had ambulances on the scene in 6 minutes, and the whole thing was wrapped up in 8 minutes. Some real heroes who descended on this. I mean, vigilance, they've got cameras everywhere. They know this is coming.
That's true, but a defensive approach isn't going to work here, because if you look at the trend, if you look at the increasing amount of jihadist groups, jihadist attacks, and overall jihadist supporters that we're dealing with, it's going to become harder and harder to stop these types of things. If you just look at the numbers, the published numbers, there's about 3,000 extremists in the UK that they consider to be high risk. Of the lower tier, there's another 20,000. So 23,000 extremists in one database, not including radicals as a whole. That's a tough problem to tackle.
Ryan, we've seen multiple terror attacks, as Majid said, 3 in the last 3 months at the Westminster Bridge, the Ariana Grande concert, and now on the London Bridge. This is a problem that isn't going away. We're going to see teddy bears, and we're going to see flowers, and we're going to see remembrance, all of which are fitting. But what is it going to take to make sure that the people of London, that the people of the UK, wake up to the reality that they have an enemy in their midst that they haven't fully dealt with?
I think the average person gets it, but we have to have different reforms within the intelligence services, because almost all the time you find out that a terrorist that carries out an attack was in a database and then traveled somewhere and didn't hit a tripwire where they said, okay, we need to question him at the airport or raid the home or something like that. So
how do you get him out of a database and out of your country? Because listen, if you know they're a known extremist sympathizing with ISIS, why do they want them in London? Why do they want them in the UK? And can they institute reforms that allow them to deport these people?
Well, it depends on if they're citizens or residents, because I've raised that question, and you'll hear a lot of people saying, well, look, they are entitled to these legal protections. Now, in Europe, they're willing to go further than the United States is in handling this type of thing. But we've also really got to pressure the Muslim community here, because we just learned that the Manchester bomber's mosque, the one that he attended, originally there were friends of the mosque telling the media, oh, they reported him. Now we know that they were lying. They were spinning to the media that the mosque did not report him, despite knowing he had extremist outbursts. There was a poll done last year that showed that only about 1/3 of British Muslims said that they would report to the authorities someone that they suspected of working with terrorists in Syria.
Why?
That is scary. Because they want to solve it in-house. There's a greater loyalty to it's a tribal mindset. So they say, well, if there's a problem, we solve it amongst ourselves. You don't hand it over to the British government, where this person is going to suffer in a jail cell or worse.
Right.
Yeah, this is a huge wake-up call. We all need to work together, whether you're the Muslim community, whether you're our European allies right here in the United States. That's something that President Trump tweeted about last night. But from here, I mean, we know there were 3 attackers. How do you know if they were part of a greater terror cell in terms of what happens from here to figure out where this originated from? Where
because
does that go?
They always are part of a larger network. Always. Here it's very clear because you have 3 people, so that's obviously a cell. But a cell is always part of a network. And these Islamist networks are sustained by an infrastructure, the mosques, the financiers, the people that are promoting it throughout the schools. And if we look at it like that, as an insurgency where you have hubs of support, identifiable supporters, then we can beat it. Then there's a network that you can rip apart. Up until now, it's largely been looked at as a criminal justice problem, where you look at the individual criminal activity in support of terrorism, and then you go after that person, as opposed to a counterinsurgency model, an ideological model, where you say, who is spreading these types of ideas? And that results in frightening polls like the one I just mentioned. Another stat from that is that 5% would admit to the pollsters that they had sympathy for suicide bombers. Now, if you have 3 million Muslims in the UK and 5% in a poll have sympathy for suicide bombers, that's 150,000 people.
Yeah, that's a big city. That's a real problem.
It's not a statistical anomaly. Ryan Mauro, great to see you this morning. Thank you
thanks a lot.